for Suncoast Compost. We are powered by Renewable, which is the mother company per se. Um, they are located in Miami, and that's where Renewable started from. And originally, Suncoast Compost was just a Tampa startup that just a couple locals started up because we wanted to make a difference. Um, the main reason behind Suncoast Compost, besides being a business and actually trying to make money, is to spread the word and the knowledge and the fact that composting is a thing. Because in society nowadays, particularly Western society, we are so used to like trash pickup, like throwing all our trash into a trash bin, and from there, as soon as it's in the bin, it's no longer a problem. It just gets handed to somebody else. Like for example, the United States used to ship off a lot of trash recycling off to China, just because we didn't know what to do with it. So, like I said, the purpose of our company is to make a bit of a difference and spread the word that it at the end of the day, whatever you consume is still yours after you're done consuming it, and that is it still has a purpose. It's not just trash, and as a result, composting is a valuable tool that is part of the endless cycle of, well, for us it's food, since that's what our main purpose for fruits, vegetables is. But it is part of the cycle. It's not just you get food or like you just go to the supermarket, buy whatever you need, and whatever you're done with it just goes into the trash. It's part of an endless cycle. It starts somewhere, it ends somewhere, yes, but that start and end are hand in hand, because you need, like Mike said earlier, you need to be able to feed the ground so you could feed yourself. Because it doesn't just appear. We can't just mine the ground like you said earlier, simply because then it's a finite resource. And since we know that our food, or at least our human food cycle is a cycle at the end of the day, it needs to be replenished. It can't just be mined. And at Suncoast Compost, like I said, we offer a service to pick up compost, but in my opinion, the service is kind of secondary to our primary purpose, which is to share information about what we do and how it works. It's a fairly easy system. You can sign up for it as a private individual or as a company. We have several private companies down here, both in Tampa and St. Pete, that are willingly partaking in this system, just to prove that it's not just mom and pop, Joe Schmo, that can do this in their backyard. Big companies have a potential and have the ability to compost. It's not 100% accurate, as we have a couple more companies that are partaking in the program now, but still, the point is the same. Anyway, yeah, like I said, we're trying to reconnect people, again, particularly because the Western society has separated us from it, to the food cycle, and transform food waste back into food by taking food out of your kitchen, or food waste out of your kitchen, taking it and composting it, and then which is something that is part of our program, giving back to our customers. What we do is, instead of taking all the compost and just simply taking from our customer, we try to reconnect them by twice a year. Part of the program is to give back finished compost, because we can't technically sell it or label it as fertilizer. Since the U.S. government requires a variety of licenses to sell as fertilizer, we give back fertilized compost to our customers. They're basically 1 yard bags, like a sandbag, that you get back every 6 months, and it is potent compost that you could use in your, like we use it at my house in our front yard. We have banana trees, we have broccoli, cauliflower, simply because one, the grass was dying and looked horrible, and two, we actually wanted to make something useful out of it. Instead of just having more grass, maintain it every week or so, and spray chemicals on it to keep that one monoculture going, which doesn't serve a purpose other than maybe look decent a couple days of the week. So if you choose not to take part in the Give Back program, let's say because you don't have a yard or you live in an apartment complex or just simply don't have use of that, we give back that finished compost to community gardens simply because we want to spread, again, the knowledge and information that composting is doable in the community, that community gardens can work together and we don't have to rely massively on supermarkets to sustain ourselves. There's a variety of community gardens here in Tampa. Granted, they're not big enough to supply the entire city or even large sections of it, but we are working toward increasing the capability of feeding particularly the individuals that are in need, that don't have access to funds to sometimes go to the grocery store and buy food. We try to essentially push for people to involve themselves in our system and into the community garden system to increase the availability of food to, again, people that are in need or who are disadvantaged in some way, shape, or form.
I love that you say it's a ridiculous human problem.
Oh, yeah,
Food wastage.
Absolutely it is.
It's the
It's a
stupidest.
self-created problem too. That's the biggest, at least what I think the stupidest part of this is the problem of food waste was created by us, and we are expanding on it by just doing nothing. Instead of like countries, like other countries like Germany. I'm originally from Germany, and in Germany we have a composting system that is sponsored by the states, well, not really the state, but counties and regions will have their own composting systems, and it's part of regular trash. You have a trash bin, recycling bin, you have a composting bin, and you, similar to our program that we have privately, you have a state-sponsored program where you get compost back as for actual fertilizer. They can sell it, or actually, that is technically wrong. It is not sold. It is given back depending on how much compost you have logged throughout the year. You can get a certain amount of compost back for free, and then provided that you, let's say you need more, you can purchase more, which feeds into the system itself, because the money doesn't get sent to the other side of the country and into some project. It gets put back into the composting system and into the waste system, simply because that's where it belongs. It shouldn't. You shouldn't just take money for profit in a system that is made for the everyday citizen.
Besides businesses, how many families or communities, or do you have?
We do just private homes throughout Tampa and St. Pete. We do the businesses like I mentioned, but our main customers right now, because we're still fairly small, we're working on getting contracts with companies like Starbucks, Publix, the bigger companies. But right now, because we are limited to our size, right here in Tampa, we have myself, one truck, and one place where we do the actual composting. Until we upscale, it's going to be limited to private citizens and their homes, and we have in Tampa about 75 homes that we pick up from, plus businesses, and in St. Pete about 50, just give or take. It really depends, because our system allows for people to sign up. Let's say they're not going to be in town for a couple weeks. They let us know. We don't pick up from their house, just to avoid having to drive around unnecessarily, and as well as giving opportunity for new customers to just walk up to us. That happens to me almost every time I'm out on the road, because of the signs on the truck. They're like, "Hey, what is this?" They don't know about the composting system, let alone that you're able to compost. Or if they do know about composting, it's usually backyard composting, which, yes, it's a viable option, but it's not very effective, simply because you need a certain scale to be able to turn around the compost and actually turn it into something that's usable.
Yeah.
Not just something that looks pretty in the backyard, which, again, don't get me wrong, the effort and the fact that people are doing something is amazing, but you need to be able to produce results, and that's the goal behind this business as a whole, is to prove that it's not just a concept in theory and it works in theory, it actually works in practice. Granted, we're not making bucket loads of money, or else we would have expanded massively at this point, but it is still a proven concept that it is something that is doable, again, by the everyday citizen, as well as companies can pick this up and go to the city, go to the county, go to the state at the end of the day, which, by the way, composting technically in Florida there's no license for it. It's just something that the state just kind of looks the other way, and they don't necessarily approve of it, but they also don't really enforce, like, hey, you're not allowed to do this. So it's a weird relationship between government and the private sector, which honestly, if it wasn't for politics, a lot of things would be very much easier and would have gotten done a lot faster, but here we are. So while we're still dealing with this mess, we will make the best of it, and yeah, just try. Yep. No, go ahead.
I was curious if you know, like, how like cities like San Francisco like deal with their compost, and if that was anything that you guys were thinking about somehow in the future.
California and New York, well, technically a lot of states up north have a lot better programs, and already some state-sponsored programs too, that work with the city, and then the city then sends out. How do they do it in New York? It was basically they send out grants and they force businesses to compost. Like, let's say if you have for New York, I think it's over 2,500 pounds per month or something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers. But yeah, if you have enough compostable materials, you actually have to compost if there's a facility within it. I believe it is 30 miles. And if you don't, there's heavy fines involved and stuff like that. But they are not just encouraging private individuals, but they're also, which I don't like the forcing bit, but I like the heavy incentive of businesses to compost, because it is doable. It's not something that's, it's a fever dream that's never going to happen. No, there's literally countries that do this every day, and they don't have a problem. They don't spend millions of dollars in extra money just to fund systems like these. So, yes, there are states in the U.S., to get back to your original question, there are states and cities in the U.S. that are already way ahead of Florida, but then again, Florida is still behind a lot of stuff.
I was going to give the personal observation that years ago in the Philippines, when I was working there in Manila, we went out to Smoky Mountain, which is the world's largest landfill. It could be seen from space, and met with the garbage picking society that lives around it. As garbage trucks pulled in, they all had, in Tagalog and in English, signs that said, if you don't separate your waste, we don't pick it up. Organics here, inorganics there. Every citizen in Manila has to follow this, or they are refused garbage pickup, because they're bringing it to generate methane deliberately to generate electricity, green electricity. And there's a very sophisticated trash recycling culture living at the margins of the landfill. It's part of their green landfill program, because they're embarrassed that they do have one of the largest landfills. Then in San Francisco, we went there. When you're at the airport in San Francisco, there are, at least when we were there, docents standing by the garbage bins who've been trained. All of the vendors, in at least this one wing of the airport where we were, it's all compostable plates and cups and cutlery. And they direct you to the compost area and tell you what goes into trash and what is.
They teach you.
They teach you at the airport. And then at our cousin's place in downtown San Francisco, again, if you put it out and it's mixed, they cite you and they leave a warning the first time that shows exactly what you did wrong. And they say, if you do it again, we stop pickup. It's your business to deal with it, because we're not. So a lot of money has gone in, as you said, to incentivizing. And I guess New York and Massachusetts passed a law, if you are up that level, 100% of that business or that neighborhood stuff has to go to either compost or biodigester. So we're very behind.
Because like San Francisco, I just read a little bit about it, so I wasn't sure if you knew more, but like, yeah, like they have ordinances that you have to have the trash, the recycling, and the compost bin at like all houses and restaurants and everything.
Mhm.
And I think they have, I don't think it's their own municipality, but like a third, like a private company that
Mhm,
deals
that
with
picks
the
up the compost, yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was wondering if that's something that could happen.
Oh
here.
yeah, it's absolutely feasible. It's just the cities are, or particularly the counties, aren't really. It's not that they're not willing to work with us. It's just they have to be very careful, legally speaking, as to what they allow us to do. And then there's the money part, which, as we all know, the government loves to not give you money when you actually need it, but loves to collect it.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
there is that.
I missed that, what was that?
I was just saying that when you're trying to work with a county or with the government in general, it's not very easy to get. Well, it's because of the legality of composting. They have to be very careful and kind of baby step it when it comes to telling us what we can and can't do, legally speaking. And then you have the additional hurdle of getting grants from the county, and it's a huge mess because at the end of the day, it is the government. So yeah,
Well, you show in that picture those same compostable bags that we met Phil at the Hope Spot Festival in Dunedin, and Dylan was there with Dr. Brooke Hansen, and who else was there from our student? Any other students that were there this year
The host spot
at the Hope Spot Festival?
there's students from UT that were there.
Right.
University of Tampa.
yeah, the UT students were the ones helping us with the stations.
Right. And those compostable plastic bags, we've tried for years. At Rosebud, we cannot get them to break down, nor can we break down the PLA cups. But remember when we set up the protocycler that we got from Canada, the shredder, it turns the PLA back into printing filament. And we wanted to know, we have a protocycler upstairs now that has a small hand grinder, shredder, and then it goes into the auger and it heats it up and it extrudes and makes 3D printing filament.
Cool.
We want to try with the PLA cups to see if we can turn it into printing filament, because PLA is the material that they use for printers. Do you know anything about anybody else who's doing that?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, we've talked
Yeah.
about it at the events where, I mean, the technology is there to shred the material and then to return it to essentially a usable form. But I don't know anybody off the top of my head that is actively doing this, particularly with recycled material instead of just regular PLA.
But your facility does have the temperatures to
Yes.
do the bags and the
you
so-called
have to-
recyclable.
You have to. We use bio bags as well as just like you said, compostable plastics, if you want to call them that. It really you really need the temperature, concentration, pressure. What's the easiest way to put it? You need for a compost pile to break down evenly fast, as well as not just have like clumps. You have to flip it every now and then and keep the temperature concentrated. And I think it's approximately 190 degrees 180, 190 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on what you're composting. But with the plastics, you need that increased temperature because the reaction that causes them to break down needs temperature and pressure, and the bacteria that is the cause for that reaction very much likes heat. So if you want it to be done in like a timely manner, not over the course of a year's time or more, you need temperature and pressure to achieve that, and that's why we when we do have the ability to, we flip the piles with the wie sagt man, a skid loader. There we go.
Right. Same as you have. You were
yeah.
talking about getting an electric skid loader
It's a
for your
really
operation.
big skid loader.
Do you all guys know what a
Like
skid loader is? They're hugely important pieces of technology. The Muskogee Eco Village depends on its 2 skid loaders for everything they do when they're timber framing and they're cutting their timber and then replanting their trees up there, when they're building the straw bale houses, when we were digging for the biodigesters to put them in, moving pallets of cement, rebar. Skid loader is, and they're, this Muskogee, Nick, one of the Muskogee young men who's up there, he's a skid loader. He's like Iron Man in his exoskeleton suit. Like when he gets into that skid loader, he let me drive it, and I was like, I'm going to destroy something. I'm going to fall off a cliff. This guy gets in it, and he's spinning around because it has a 360 degree or
Yeah, it's an
180.
extension
extend, it's like, he is like, or he's like, in that movie Alien, when Sigourney Weaver's in that exoskeleton to punch the heck out of the alien. Maybe you can just show a picture really quickly of a skid loader, because I think, again, with the technical of making our shredder, buying our glass crusher, this machinery is so important for sustainability.
Everything else sounded awesome, but also.
He's like, that's what's sold.
Yeah, it's
I couldn't
kind
find
of
that
one of
like
these.
before.
It's not really like a bobcat in this one.
Yeah.
It's more like a big tractor with the same shovel in the front.
And the one in the Muskogee Eco Village, those shovels can be replaced with other, like we were doing the cement mixer, we put on the auger and cement mixer. So you have these detachable,
Speaking of cement mixer, we were actually recently started using coconut husk.
You hear
was
this?
compressed. We started recently using coconut husk as kind of a layer to soak up the juices of the compost.
Yeah.
As a bottom layer, we do coconut husk, then we do mulch, like 25 inches of mulch, and then we put the compost on top of that, and we put more mulch on top of it. So, yeah, we've been using a concrete mixer for that.
can you play a quick little video of a skid loader in operation? It just you can see why it's called a skid loader. I mean, these things skid around. It just, skid steer, bobcat. They're so versatile. When I first got to drive one up in Alabama, I was like, where have you been in all my life? I don't know if there's
Just a simple video of somebody driving around.
yeah.
We're gonna move to a 4,500-pound lift. So we're gonna go ahead and bring the sheet 26 up 4, plus a 135 excavator bucket. Yes.
They're like cool little robots.
And it looks tiny with the guy right there, but that is insanely heavy.
Wider than 4 foot.
The electric one you can control
So
with
the
your
load's a
phone.
little.
Really? So it is a robot.
Hilarious.
It is, yeah.
But we put these
But
buckets on the scale.
It's made in Europe, so you have to like jerry rig an adapter to it.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we use something similar, more tractor-like version of this to flip the piles as well as just move.
Watch these things spin, it's like, you can get into tight spaces with them. They lifted us up on it so we could get up high, like standing on it. Like,
Counterweight himself inside the seat of that machine on that Bobcat.
This is hilarious that they have this competition.
right.
Yeah, this is really funny.
He's got the S650. I'll tell you what, this 2,600-pound class of skid steers, everybody's pretty tight in a lot of specifications. Very competitive.
Yeah.
Very close.
I don't know if they show you it spinning around, but when these things spin, yeah, it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my
It's a
God,
little heavy.
oh God.
For anybody that doesn't know, the counterweights are the tires. They are foam filled, and those things weigh several hundred pounds each. So that's the only way they can actually lift both that and the weight distribution of the engine and the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit too heavy for this guy.
But you can see he's got forklift on it, or you can put an auger for a cement mixer, you can put a shovel. It's just the most adaptable little machine.
We're able to plant a banana in like 2 minutes with the auger.
Really?
Yeah, we drill a hole with the auger and then we stick the banana in with compost.
And just cover it up and bam.
And now that you said electric skid steer, I'm like, this is going to be a game. Yeah, I know, but when you get it, this could be a game changer for the whole industry. Yeah.
But yeah, that's more or less what we use to work
But
with the farm.
I left a message for Nick. I don't know if he is going to get back to me.
He was pretty busy
Okay.
yesterday, so you might have not seen it, but I'll let him know that you sent him.
Is next week possible?
Yeah, I'll be there Wednesday. So if he's not
So-
here, I'll be there.
My plan was next Wednesday, rather than coming to class here, we meet at Suncoast Compost, and then you'll see the skid steer, you'll meet Nick, and you'll see Phil again. Maybe Xavier will be up, but maybe not. Probably doesn't come usually on Wednesdays.
I think so, because he's down in Miami,
Yeah.
but I'll be there. Just let me know around what time you guys want.
It would be this same thing, 1:45 to 4:30. Can you put up on the map where you guys are?
Yeah, right down 56th Street.
That'd be good to see. Would that be okay with you all? We meet in, at Suncoast? Yes, yes, yes? You don't object to field education? You, no?
Go learn about some dirt.
Can we come down to Pine Island at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
That would be neat.
Love to see 'em by now.
How many hours down is that?
It's a bit of a drive.
It's about 3 hours?
Probably like 2.5 hours, yeah.
Maybe on a Saturday.
Maybe on a Saturday then.
Yeah, when you drive there, you'll see a lot of destruction from the hurricane.
Wow.
The bridge to get over there, there's still fallen buildings.
Does it use a hydraulics?
Let's satellite this.
This electric
It's a bit
bobcat
weird
specifically
to get
says
in.
no hydraulic.
Can you put the directions and show us where we are in relation to?
The address is up here.
Yeah, but if you click on directions there and put USF,
I'm blind.
oh, down on the left. Keep going left, there, the blue thing, yeah.
Little blue thing.
Oh, right, the left for, yeah.
And then maybe just type in USF,
For it because,
Tampa,
You could do Patel.
what's it called, fly-by-wire.
USF Patel.
So with the bucket, you don't really need a hydraulic system.
Yeah.
It's just electric.
College of Builders
Yeah,
is
but
in
the
the.
brand is Elsie, the one that's been around for a little while.
Yeah, it's
Or
Oh.
like right down 56th Street. It's right outside of Temple Terrace. You drive over the bridge on 56th Street, and you'll see a Texaco gas station, and it's right there.
Do you guys see where it is?
550.
So we're up here.
15 minutes away.
Well, that's with the traffic now, but it
Yeah.
took me. I live like right here in this area,
Uh-huh,
and it took me like 10 minutes to get here
10 minutes.
Maybe it's
after I hopped in the shower.
Is it at a house?
Technically, yes. That's what I wanted to show you guys because the GPS is a bit misleading. You don't actually get in from the back street. You get in from 56th Street because there's a little path right here. But what I would recommend for all you guys, depending on how many cars there will be, to park here in the corporate square because it is gated right here. And I don't think that many cars will fit on the actual property, but we can park.
Well, we should carpool.
Yeah.
What about meeting here and then taking 4 in a car and limit the number of cars?
That works too. Like I said, I'll be there a little early. I'll just be by the gate with my car inside and just hit the button when you guys get here or get there. But you have the ability to park here in the corporate square. There's a bunch of parking lots. There's easily 50 parking spots like right next door, and you can walk to the driveway.
Right by Safeway Tires.
So yeah, you have
Square.
the auto shop here, and then the Texaco is right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
So don't follow the GPS because it's not going to take us there.
Well, GPS will tell you to go out back, but the
Mhm.
gate back there is a manual gate, and only Nick has the lock or
Okay.
the key for the lock. So if you go down 56th Street, just go south, and it'll give you the corporate square, and it's literally right. The driveway is right here. This right here is the driveway. That dirt path right here.
Okay.
This is how you get in. You have the tire shop right here. So if you get into the tire shop, you can get in this way. But I would recommend coming in and just parking here in the corporate square in this
Walking over.
parking area. Because it's kind of hidden by the trees, but you go through here and then there's a gate right here.
Okay.
And we are composting. That might actually be the truck, maybe. But yeah, we're composting back here. We moved the boat over to this side, but we have 3 piles. They're like 40 by 10, like 10 feet wide by 40 feet long. And yeah.
That's
Little-
great.
A little dirt, piles of dirt.
And then when we talk to, you're doing a lot of festivals.
We try to do events, just because we want to, again, spread the knowledge that composting is a thing. Because, I mean, the event that we met you at, people came up to us and, the city does composting, what? Was the general reaction where we're like, hey, this is great, we come from, this state, this country, and composting's a thing here. We like to see it, come down here and become a thing, because it's needed at the end of the day. We need to be proactive when it comes to our trash. We need to be able to not just forget about it after it leaves our hands.
And you had the UTI students who were working the Hope Spot Festival. They were there last year too. Tracy Tippin does a great job of arranging. Around here, do you need students who we can give credit to for doing what they were doing down at the Hope Spot Festival, acting as docents, educating people,
Sure.
doing
I mean,
stuff? Does that, there are events around the Tampa area that,
That would be more something for my boss,
Xavier.
Xavier could talk about.
He is more like the event planner when it comes to that.
So I think of all
Yeah,
sorts of ways where
absolutely.
you guys could do what we were doing at the bull market this morning and other times where you're sharing your knowledge with the public, which is the best way to fix it in your head. Like we talked about the 7 types of plastic recycling designations, and you only memorize them when you're out there working with recycling or educating somebody else. The teacher's the one who learns everything, obviously. The student learns the least. So getting out and using these opportunities to get in front of the public and then bringing your notes with you and then sharing this and answering questions is, that to me is the most valuable way to become an expert in this particular domain.
Yeah,
It's got to be lived.
Like I said, that is, and again, my personal opinion, the primary goal of this company is to share that knowledge. Because, again, either people are ignorant of it or just don't have, or weren't taught, particularly in school. That's what kind of bothers me about the public school system is we're taught a bunch of stuff, yes, that is technically usable, but it doesn't help us at all in life. I mean, again, I come from Europe, and in school we learn like how our tax system works. This is a very good example. When we came here to the United States, and I went to high school over here too, after going through high school in Germany, it's a complete night and day difference. You don't really get taught any practical skills whatsoever, other than I went to Venice High School, south of Sarasota, which I'm sure you know. And I mean, our options were culinary class. I think we had a shop class for a little bit, but that went away. And we had the computer tech class. So those were all the practical skills that we were taught, which is not really much of anything.
Yet you're a machinist and a welder. Where did you get that
Self-taught,
skills?
yes.
Of self-taught.
Yeah.
And there's our shredder shaft that we're getting a new one
I was
repaired.
gonna ask about that. Is that the one that?
Yeah, that's sheared. Did we ever bring the other piece of it, or I left it in the car?
Things right there on
No, that, yeah. Look at how it just sheared off. Isn't that weird? It's the other side.
Yeah, it is the side.
No, it came off of,
I see.
yeah, it was right here.
Oh, okay.
And it just, we overloaded the machine with some plastic, fibrous plastic. It was like one of those nets that you do for potato bags. And it got caught up, and rather than tripping the circuit breaker or causing strain on the engine, it just sheared.
Sheared right off.
Yeah, now it's going to cost us $136 for.
Have it rewelded?
No, we can't re-weld. Well, if you know how to re-weld it, that would be great. But
I would be careful with this type of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of torque going into
yeah.
this.
So we ordered a new hex shaft. First, we got a cylinder for $53, 2-foot length, so we could make 2, so we'd have a backup. Then we brought it to the machine shop here at USF, and they said, no, it would take us a week to make a hex out of it. You don't want to, even with a 6 chuck, you don't want to make it that way, buy a hex. So Alan and I went back down, and we paid $136 to get 2 foot of hex, down from $230 because they found a supplier. It's being shipped by Friday.
So you're just trying to get, essentially, you're just trying to get a hex piece already and just have it
Yes.
turned down and then have the slot put in. Okay, I see.
Yeah, it's $70 an hour here, so it's way out of our budget, but I got the dean to approve it, to bring it to the machine shop. Then we're gonna build an entire new double shaft, larger shredder, because we want students to be able to bring their plastic and shred it. And we have a budget of $5,000 to get all the parts, and then we have to assemble it ourselves. So,
If you need help assembling, you got my phone number.
boy, we do. Did you hear that nice offer? He just said if you need help, because he's a machinist and a welder, assembling.
But yes, I am mechanically inclined.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As is Andrew here. Andrew and his dad taught him, so he's got experience in that kind of tinkering space. But yeah, we need to, by the end of the semester, we need to build the 2-axis shredder from scratch.
Like I said,
Yeah.
you have my number, let me know when.
And then I understand that from Xavier that you guys are going to be getting into the glass crushing space,
I believe so.
which is
but
what Kaylin's doing her capstone about.
Yeah, I haven't really talked to him about that. He mentioned it, but he hasn't really talked to me about that too much because I've been really focused on this and keeping this going and making sure that
everything gets done up here since I am by myself.
Yeah, you are.
Um,
What support can we give as an institution and with all this these bright minds? Obviously, the education space is where we are, but we talked about they all come up to Rosebud. Michaela is the Rosebud coordinator, and we're getting a glass crusher at Rosebud. We're fixing that shredder and getting another shredder. We have a granulator. We have compost piles. We have composting toilets. We have 3 big biodigesters.
That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about.
Go ahead.
If we could maybe get one of those biodigesters over at Nick's place and see if that would be a feasible way of composting, maybe even more effective than what we're doing now. Just because we don't always have access to the machinery to flip the piles, and at times where I've done it once so far, flipping the piles by hand, and let me tell you, it was a pain in the rear, and it took me about 2.5 weeks to do 1 pile by myself.
Wow.
Not something you want to do, considering you can flip 3 piles in about 6 to 8 hours of time with actual machinery.
Have you tried static or aerated piles?
Oh, we have tried that, but the way we were doing it was with pallets and just blowing compressed air under those pallets. It works until it doesn't, because the pallets tend to rot too, and then it just breaks down over time. We haven't tried it at this newest location, but we have done that in the past. And it was effective, particularly at the turnaround, because you are aerating the compost and it allows it to breathe per se.
That's actually better for tree farming, because not turning the piles.
Sorry?
Not turning the piles is better for tree farming, because you get more fungus.
Yeah, we actually try, we're not like avoiding fungal growth, but we try to cut down on it, just because when we do flip it, it is hazardous to anybody
Spores.
working on it. Yeah, particularly with mulch, we have to be very careful to flip it regularly so that it doesn't, again, not that funguses are bad, but we do not want excessive molds growing on there, because that can contaminate a whole thing of finished compost, and yeah, you can't really send that to the customer, because then that'll infect whatever they're using it on. So while we do like to keep our mulch alive and our compost alive, that's why we try to flip it regularly
Do you know?
and aerate it, just to avoid the overgrowth of that. But yeah, that's a valid point.
I have an Oculus for you to take. Oh, I can say it loud. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just,
no worries.
I have an Oculus for you to take home so that you can more effectively dip into it, which I'll bring tonight to my car. And then the other thing is we're meeting at Rob's class tonight. Did you get that message?
I did.
Okay. Good. Just wanted to make sure. All right. And then I'll have that Oculus for you. Thanks. Yeah, so we also had talked about possibility of getting food waste from you, because our biodigesters are underutilized at Rosebud. What would you need from us to make that feasible for you?
You said your main issue was transport. You already have a source and you have a place to put it to.
Yeah.
It all depends on what Xavier says, because he's the head man of the operation. But I'd be happy to take the truck out, pick it up for you guys, and then drop it off at your biodigesters and see how that works out. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how the biodigesters would work, particularly in our environment, because the humidity works well with composting, because we
Right.
hydrate our compost as well, just so we increase the overall mass on the piles, and it cuts down on the time the compost needs to break down, as well as it's a win-win. You add pressure, it regulates the heat to an extent. So let's say your compost piles are way too hot in the summer, you water them down,
Yeah.
and the evaporation allows some of the heat to get pulled out of it.
Right. I imagine we'd be a good, this semester, if we can get it organized, a good test case before you put in the labor, the money to build the digester, to see if we load it to its full capacity, which is with 3 digesters that we have would be 3 barrels per day is the max that it can take, 355 gallon drums.
55 gallon drums.
Yeah, well, we can go probably up to 96 gallon drums. We don't know if it's, grinding really helps, and our grinder's small. But they're at Fat Beet Farm, they put in for us a 10 horsepower grinder, but they're more expensive, radically more expensive. But then you can really rapidly
Yeah,
do
you
the
can grind
grinding.
whatever comes through there.
Yeah. You don't have a grinder, I imagine.
No, that's actually, I did mention that to Xavier, because that is something that would increase our turnaround, like massively.
Radically.
Because it just, you break it down and it allows it to just do its thing with the
3 to
bulk
6
material.
days.
Yeah,
soil
exactly.
formation.
It takes it from months to literal days and weeks, which it amazes me I mean, I did a little bit of research when it comes to that, but it's still pretty amazing as how fast the turnaround is. That and you, depending on how, not necessarily you regulate, but what you allow in your compost, because we have a certain list of things that we allow, certain things we do not allow. Granted, we're still humans at the end of the day. Humans make mistakes, so we pick by hand whatever is not allowed in. But if we could just shred that through, it would simplify stuff like, for example, the bio bags.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the fact that there's bags in there and they fly around on occasion, or the bioplastics that we use. And shredding that would eliminate that issue entirely.
My test when you gave us the 27 pounds of material from the festival, the bio bag would not shred in the incinerator. It just spun around and around and around and around and around.
That's my fear, because it was already exposed to some moisture. The moisture, as soon
Yeah.
as those bags get any type of moisture, they turn almost like a rubbery material, which that's what they're designed to do. That's the beginning of the breakdown process, but at the same time, it makes a mess to clean up.
Yeah, it's a mess. PLA cups, same thing. So we want to put those in the plastic shredder. All we need to do is hose it down and then use it in the plastic shredder.
We've actually, or at least I've personally found for the bio bags, if you just throw them out, like if you separate them from the compost and just throw them out and have them dry, they almost break down like brittle paper.
Ah,
That's what I found personally. But you have to have
Interesting.
them dry. So I'm sure if you dry them out and then throw them through the shredder will eat them happily.
yeah, that kind of shredders. Because the incinerator is just it's a spinning plate that throws it against a sort of cheese grater, and that doesn't work. So there's a lot of experimentation for us to do. We've never had, except for briefly when one of our students worked for Columbia Restaurant, she would pack her car with 10 5-gallon buckets of food waste that she separated out and bring it up to Rosebud, and she would grind it all day long and feed, and that was when we had the most gas and we were generating electricity. And then we've never had it since she got actually she was forbidden by Columbia Restaurant to continue that, because they said, you're just a waitress. She said, I'm a sustainability student. They said, you have no business training our staff, taking the food waste and bringing it. And she said, but you're just dumping it in dumpsters. And they said, yeah, but it's not your business, and so we forbid you.
Yeah, that's one other thing that we've kind of dealt with, is certain businesses are, for them it seems like extra work or an extra expense, which I find funny because we're cheaper than the actual waste
Are you?
management of either Tampa and St. Pete. If you, depending on how much biomass you're actually trying to get rid of, we are technically cheaper by mass. We are cheaper than the general waste management service that is offered by either city or either county. Sorry. So, yeah, that's one of the points that usually gets brought up. Is like, oh, you're probably very expensive. At first, it might look like that, but depending on how big of a business you are, we will work with you. We're not going to charge flat rate for every single bin, depending again how big you are, and depending on how much you toss out. For example, Sweetgreen here in Tampa, I think it's about around the Ybor area. Sweetgreens, the restaurant, we give them 3 48-gallon bins that they fill up twice a week. So that's ballpark between 375 and 500 pounds of compost twice a week just from them. And then you add the about 1,000 pounds to 1,500 pounds of compost twice a week from the route where we have our residents, as well as the occasional other restaurant that does like smaller amounts of food waste.
Wow.
So,
Well, this is great.
It adds up.
We thank you because most of the students the first week, when they went around talking about their interest and why they're taking this particular course, food waste was the largest common denominator between them. And to have this relationship with you and now know more about you and to be able to go next week to see you at the actual facility and then establish a relationship so we can improve the operation at Rosebud and then hopefully build a digester with you at the place. This is all a very good news.
It's a step in the
Yes.
right direction.
Yeah. So thank you. I guess with that, our class time is officially over. No, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah. Both of you, we really